Positive energy makes the world a better place. Toolbox Talk can elevate your walk.
Tall Feast Life Strategy presents Toolbox Talk, top tools for a fulfilling life. A Toolbox Talk for living, where Akbar and friends will share the top strategies and insights gained from living life. Welcome to Toolbox Talks. This is your host, Amir Akbar, and today we are discussing default identities with Dawn Pullin. We welcome you, dear listeners, to another enlightening episode of Unmasking Default Identities, Navigating the Crisis. Today we embark on a profound journey into the heart of our being, exploring the very essence of who we are. This is episode 2, the Origins of Default Identities. I'm your guide on this exploration, and my promise to you is together we will unravel the layers that conceal our authentic selves and discover the keys to unlocking a life of true purpose. We define default identities. It's that moment when you realize you've been living according to someone else's script, conforming to societal expectations, perhaps without even realizing it. It's that disconnect between who you truly are and the role you've been playing. Today, ladies and gentlemen, as we embark on this profound exploration of self-discovery, I am honored to introduce a distinguished guest whose wisdom will undoubtedly illuminate our path. She is a beacon of insight, a guide on the journey to authenticity. Please welcome Dawn Pullin, a seasoned expert in mental health and personal development with a wealth of knowledge, a passion for empowering individuals. Dawn is here to share her perspective on the origins of default identities. Dawn, thank you for gracing our show with your presence.
Thank you for having me here today. I appreciate that opportunity to speak to your listeners and to have a deep conversation about the topic of today.
Okay, Dawn, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Oh, what do you want to know? Let's see. I am a master's level clinician. I have been in mental health and substance abuse treatment for over 25 years. I have lived experience. I'm a coach. I run a business. Just an everyday girl.
Okay, thank you. Our identities are like intricate tapestries, are woven with threads of culture and societal influences. From the cradle to the present moment, these external forces shape our perceptions, attitudes, and aspirations. Dawn, can you share your insights on how cultural backgrounds lay the foundation for our default identities?
Oh, it's a deep question. So let's go back to before slavery, right? Everybody thinks that everything that happened to African Americans started when we got to America in slavery. But honestly, it started the day that our country in Africa was infiltrated. And once we were placed on the slave ships, our identity began to change once we went into captivity because we were removed from our own inhabitants, everything that we knew, everything that we known all of our lives, and the people and the connections that we had made through that lifespan, if we were 12, if we were 15, changed at the moment that we were taken into captivity and removed from our normal habitat. So at that moment, we began to conform to whatever situation or wherever we found ourselves in order to survive. And so when we talk about the identity, we took on the identity of our captors. So we began to conform to their societal norms. We began to conform to those things that they felt were acceptable, even though it may have gone against everything that we thought or everything that we believed in. But in order to survive, we adopted those things. And so when we talk about being captive in Africa, being put on a slave ship and brought to America, and then having to live here without knowing the language, the culture, the people, and then on top of that being brutally beaten and taken advantage of on every aspect, it definitely has impacted who we are from our roots, and we have conformed to what we know as the society that we live in.
So you think we have assimilated more to the culture that we're in now, or what is your thoughts on that one?
I think we have assimilated, but I also think that it's survival. I think that a lot of things that we do, I'm an African American woman. I think a lot of the things that my ancestors and my people from, our country have done in slavery was conform to what they needed to survive. Even you know, when you watch Roots and it talks about Kunta Kinte, he went against what was being taught to him. What he wanted to keep his name, he wanted to have some form of identity. And when others watched how he was treated, then they went and they began to conform due to fear of being mistreated or being abused based on their captivity and what their captors desired for them to do or wanted them to do. So we've assimilated. I think assimilation came later. I don't believe it was at that time, but I think once we became free, we began to assimilate.
So now let's dive into the familial realm or the family realm, where the roots of our identity run deep. In your experience, how does the family upbringing contribute to the default identities?
Ooh-wee. Okay, so I did some training on this. As a matter of fact, I did a training with some young ladies about a year ago, about how our history as women in America, the superwoman myth, and how all of these things have transpired and taught us we've taken on the wrong identity as women. One of them is because, as we grow up, we are taught, my grandmother, who was a stay-at-home mom, my grandfather who worked, my great-grandmother was the same way. And one thing, my grandmother used to tell me is always have your own money. Always make sure you can take care of yourself. But I think that those things come out of learning and understanding that she was in a place that she really didn't want to be in and she didn't see a way out of it. And so, yes, it's empowering to have us want to be successful and have our own. But the other part that you miss is that there's a security in having a family unit. And it's important for us to really think about how having our own impacts our family, right? Mm-hmm. And so then the other piece is that I'm not saying that you should stay in relationships that aren't productive, but what I'm saying is that you do need to be in a relationship that's productive, that will keep your family union intact and also allow you to flourish and your children to be successful. Okay. So when I look at it, it's like we were trained certain ways, we were taught certain things. Now I look at social media, I look at the young ladies that are out here, and all the things that they're saying, I don't need a man. Yes, you do. You need a man. I'm sorry. I'm just going to tell you the truth. We need human connection. We need developing relationships. We need those things. And as a woman, I don't want to change a tire. I don't want to take the trash out. I don't want to pay my own bills all the time. I'll need help. And so, at some point we have to understand that it's our responsibility to retrain and reteach some of the things that we've taught or we've put in the atmosphere and allowed generations to take hold of that they haven't, they don't fully understand the aftermath of. Okay. So I think, and what they don't understand, part of that is that the systemic issues that we have made the design that families aren't in units anymore, right? If you live in low income housing, the man can't be in the home. Or if he's there, your rent goes up. There's so much that transpires in our community and then systematically that we have to deal with. But the part of that, the family is the core of everything. Big Mama's house is the core, and when that starts to dissipate, then the family unit begins to fall apart. So Big Mama was the one you would bring your kids to the house. She babysit all the kids. Then Big Mama ain't 50, ain't 80 no more. Big Mama 35, and Big Mama ain't babysitting, right? Mm-hmm. And so those types of changes in our family unit has definitely caused identity issues, not just with us, my generation, but our next two, I think 2 to 3 generations,
Okay.
because it's going to take some time for us to even retrain or to engage that our next generation and provide restructuring, and then for them to be open to receive that.
Okay.
So
So how do you break free from those constructs that we've developed? You mentioned the various different things like, how mom taught you this, or how grandma taught you this, or how our families are teaching us this, these things that are not productive or beneficial for our growth as far as human connections are concerned. So what some suggestions you could give our listeners that say, hey, here's some things you need to break free from this mindset that you have.
it's not okay to keep grudges, to hold on to things that are dividing our family units. Like, I remember one time my grandmother and her sister, they didn't speak for like 5 years. I didn't even know she was my auntie. Like, how's that work? She lived up the street and around the corner, right? And so that means that our family reunions and our family engagements were missing people, because some people took her side, some people took this person's side. So and then Big Mama have to come in and say, no, we're not doing this. And so when Big Mama's not there, those things, so we have to have somebody be able to be the mediator in certain situations and be able to pull our family and say, hey, yeah, you might have these differences, but at the same time, we are family. And we don't always value that in our society. Like, we don't value the need for our family members. Well, blood's thicker than water, but no, I got my friends. That's all I need, and I don't need them. And the reality of it is that might be true in some instances, but I know that for my family, I can speak on, like, my grandmother not talking to my aunt means I didn't meet my cousins, because their grandmother didn't come to the family barbecue, and then her grandkids wouldn't come, and none of us understood or had a clear understanding of even why these things were happening. I just knew this was my aunt, and I haven't seen her in forever, and then I don't see my cousins forever, and then you wonder why we have so much disdain in the family, because I don't even know why I'm picking a side. Like, why am
or if
I
it's
even
the right side?
Right, and then I'm like, well, I got to take my grandma's side because that's my grandma. But at the same time, it's not even my battle. Like,
Okay.
And then to come and find out they were arguing over a man. Like, really? Like, we mad about a guy? Come on, y'all. But the other part of it is that when people are hurt and hurting, they don't always make the best decisions, and they don't look or see the impact that their pain causes to other people, and meaning their family.
Thank you, Dawn, for that answer. And now we're discussing education, which we all know education is a very powerful force shaping our destinies. Education, while a gateway to knowledge, can sometimes become a quarter of conformity. The desire to fit in, to meet social expectations, can divert us from our authentic paths. Recognizing these detours is pivotal in reclaiming our true identities. Dawn, how do you think the educational system and peer pressures mold our default identities, which often lead us away from our true selves?
I think that part of it is that we don't always know who we want to be, what we want to be, and so we go to school and we learn this thing called education. And so when we're at school, we meet friends and we meet people, and they begin to feed us ideas, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes we're like sponges and we absorb everything, but we don't know how to navigate or process it all. And so we kind of get lost in what is going on around us versus what is really within us. And so education is supposed to bring out those things, I think, that are inherited for us as an individual. So if I go to science class and I really like science and I'm good at science, then there's maybe that thing that I should be working towards. But if somebody else doesn't feel that I'm good at something, oh, if I get a C in science, then I must not be that great in it. But it may be the way the teachers teach in the class, or it may be that I'm just not interested in that part of science, but maybe I'm interested in another part of science. So I may be good in chemistry, but I might be horrible in biology. It's still science, but it's two different types of sciences. So when people put us in this box where they say, okay, you're going to get a grade in this class, I get a grade, and then that grade determines how effective I am or how good I am, or it labels me as average, below average, or great. How does that helps define me as a person to other people, which also impacts how I see myself. And so education is great, but it also has to be more to our education than just the grade, because I'm a horrible test taker, but that doesn't mean I don't know the information. I can read the book, I can give it to you verbatim, but if you ask me to take a test, I'm gonna be like nervous. I may not, and I know the answer, but if I can't see the answer, or it doesn't make sense how it's written, then I might pick the wrong answer. That's just what it is. But education puts us in a box at points and times. I'm not saying we don't need it, but we also need to look at our students and look at how we're treating them and how we're measuring their success as more than just a letter or a number, right? It should be more in depth than that. What's their personality traits? What do they bring to the table? Everybody can't go to college. The worst thing we did is when we took out programs that were like sewing and home ec and all those wonderful things that we used to have before my time. I don't want to date myself, but I learned how to pin a needle and work a sewing machine. I mean, there's more to it than just the things that I think we present in a classroom that I think are strong suits for some people that they don't get an opportunity to share or to even get light to. The other thing about education that I think is that, we say children should meet these levels at this stage and this age, but it's only taught one way. So if we're only teaching one way, we're only going to be able to grasp those students who learn in that way. And so, school is from 8 to 3, and if I'm not a morning person, school may not start for me till 2:00. But I'm still in a classroom, right? So it's not that I'm lazy; it's just that my mind doesn't wake up and is not active until 2:00, right? And so by the time I get to that 2:00 class, I'm engaged in learning. But from 8 to 2, I might be half asleep and really don't want to be here. Not that I'm a lazy student, not that I don't want to learn. It's just that's just who I am innately. And so those are things that education does not take into consideration. So those are just some small things.
What struggle did you have in education other than the test taking that you saw that you had to do? Was there anything you had to conform to in your life as far as education is concerned?
Rules. I had to go to school every day. What if I don't want to go to school every day? That was crazy to me. And I didn't realize my testing thing until I actually was probably graduated from college. Well, was in college.
Okay.
And I've never had an issue with school because I love school. But I love school for reasons. It kept me safe. It was my safe place. I thrived there. I had friends. It was like my family away from home. And so I enjoyed being at school, and I was engaged in a lot of different activities. But when I went to college, I got my first D ever in my whole life. I was like, what the heck just happened? And what happened is I had conformed to what my family felt, or what happened. Let me go back. What happened was I went to college. I said I wanted to be a nurse. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a nurse practitioner. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be OBGYN. This is all I want to do. Do this. I get to college and I'm like, I don't want to do this. Right? It doesn't fit. It just doesn't work for me. And I wanted to do something else. In my family, I called my auntie. I was crying, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I think I want to be a teacher. And she was like, we got enough teachers in our family. You need to just finish nursing. And that's because we need nurses in our family. That's what she said. And I'm like, okay. Right? Because she's older than me. She knows better than me. But at the same time, I'm conforming to what she feels I need to be.
Okay.
Not what I want it to be. Right? And so I was in school. I was on scholarship. And I'm like, but I got a D in the nursing class. And I realized I wasn't a very good test taker. So I took this other class. I graduated from nursing school and never was a nurse.
Really?
Never practiced.
Wow.
So I went to school for 4 years. I spent $20,000-$30,000, and I came out and I did something totally different.
So you have a nursing degree now?
I do. I have a bachelor's, not just associates, a whole bachelor's degree in nursing. And that is one of the things that we do. We conform to what we think, because sometimes we want to please other people. So we conform to those things. And so even in education in our family, that's one example of how it all worked together. Mm-hmm. Where you're really strong in math and you're really strong in this. And I was like, it was fun, right? Mm-hmm. Cutting up a cadaver, looking at, then I got to them classes and I was cutting. I was like, I can't do this. But I call home and I'm crying and they're like, we need a nurse. Okay, Spanky, I'm going to be the nurse, right? Okay. Because that's what we need to do. But I think that that's part of, how my true identity was telling me at that moment, this is who you are.
Okay.
But it went against the grain of what my family and other people felt I should be. So I defaulted to the identity that they gave me, not the identity that I wanted to be.
Okay.
So what happened? I never became the nurse. I became a teacher. In my own right. Not in school, but I taught classes. I taught parenting classes. I did all the things, and I thrive in it, and I love it. And I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And when I'm in that moment, I am so good at that.
Okay.
And I enjoy it so much. And it doesn't matter if I'm getting paid $5 or $1 million. I just feel like I'm just on top of the world. So that's how we get caught up in what people, school, our families think we should be versus what our true innate self is telling us to be.
Okay.
So that's my story.
So you were able to tie into your purpose. Although you had the default identity, but you're still able to tie into the purpose now because you're doing what you love. Is that correct?
I do. I think nursing was it was really good for me because it did help me. It helps me in everything that I do. It really does. But I understand the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual part. Not because something I've learned out here. I've actually got the book knowledge for that piece. Okay. But the other part of it is that, that if we would listen to that little voice on the inside of us, telling us like, this is what makes you feel great every day, right? I'm like, this is what makes me feel great. And so that's the voice we should listen to. And a lot of times we don't because we're afraid of what people are going to say, our families are going to say, and we don't fit the educational mold. If inside of you tells you want to be a doctor and you're a D student, don't mean you can't be a doctor. Just means that maybe you might have to study a little harder. You may have to get a different technique of teaching, and it may just be the school system. Who knows?
As we navigate these influences, Dawn, what empowering message do you have for our listeners on breaking free from default identities?
What I'm going to say is do not allow yourself to get caught up in other people, what they think or feel you should be. Not saying that they don't have valid points and that you shouldn't take things into consideration. What I'm saying is that you need to weigh the pros and the cons. You need to really do some soul searching within yourself to determine what you really love, what you really want to do, and what you identify with, and how you see yourself. Because Did I see myself as a nurse? No. I think I could have been Whitney Houston maybe, but not though. But the other part of it is that I think when you find something in you that sparks your inner person, your inner child, your inner being, and you find joy in that's the place where you really need to focus, or you really need to be. And it doesn't matter if some 20,000 other people are doing it. It doesn't matter if it's never been done. All that matters is that is what you're called to do innately. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I feel I'm supposed to be. This is where my body meets the rubber, meets the road, and everything within me tells me this is it. And sometimes people do things for money. They do things for clout. They do things because that's what's expected of them. But if you follow that true, innate, I call it my little voice, inside, it'll definitely lead you where you're supposed to be. And then just do that and be great at it. And don't matter if you fail at it, if you try 1,000 times, just keep trying, and it'll get better, you'll get better, and things will begin to flourish. So just wait on your moment, work hard until the moment gets there, and just follow the little innate voice inside and do that.
Awesome.
Toolbox Talk can elevate your walk.
Enjoin the right, forbid the wrong, set the righteous example for others to follow, and be pure and true in all you do.
Toolbox Talk can elevate your walk.
Spread peace, give blessings, and step into love.
Hey Akbar, you woke 'em up.